Well, what we thought was going to be a slow week in the markets is starting out as anything but. We have news out around Binance. The SEC is getting all up in their shit. We got Apple's big presentation today. Lots to discuss there. Saudi Arabia cutting some oil production. Interested to see how that plays out. We're going to dive into all of that. We're going to look at some of the charts. Before we get going, do us a solid. Hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Nothing Kevin or I say is financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're a few guys who love following the markets, but please do your own research for making any buys and sells. Kevin, we were struggling to figure out what we are going to talk about this week. There's always something to talk about, but we just got smacked in the face with news over the last 24 hours. Where do you want to start on this Monday?
Man, there's so much to talk about. Let's do what was it? Let's do Apple. Apple's probably the one that's
do Apple first.
Yeah, let's do Apple. Save Binance for later.
Okay, we'll do Binance later. So, Ace, welcome. Good to see you. Happy Monday, buddy.
How's it going, Ace?
We had the WWDC today from Apple, their developers conference. They had a huge presentation. I want to say it was like an hour and a half, hour 45. They covered the new operating systems for everything. They talked about the new apps they have coming out as far as like journal stuff like that, which sounds really cool. They showed their Ready Player One VR headsets, which are pretty awesome, going to be expensive as hell. And it's, if we look at the price of Apple, it was the perfect example of a sell the news situation, quite literally. You can look at the chart of Apple's price, see where it hit an all-time high, and then see exactly when the call began or the presentation began, because that's when the price started to come down. So Apple went from up on the day. It is now break even on the day, roughly. We saw it hit almost 185 a share, get close to a $3 trillion market cap. But, that was based on all the rumors of what was to come today. And now we're seeing it come back down. So not surprised there, especially with everything else happening in the world. Apple's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great stock to have in your portfolio. I recommend everyone does have that portfolio because it pays solid dividends and it has potential for growth. But it's not immune to the selling the news, to macro conditions. Especially a high end brand such as Apple. They're gonna have when times get tough, like it's gonna be hard for them to sell a lot of these really expensive things. I talked to someone today who mentioned on the VR headset side of it, like this probably isn't going to be a big consumer thing early on, but it will be, a big deal for a lot of businesses that could utilize it on their day-to-day operations. So I think there's definitely opportunity there. I don't think we'll see wide use of these headsets for many years, 3, 4, 5 years. I think it's going to take a while. But huge news overall, and they're showing that they're continuing to innovate, continuing to push boundaries, and that's something that you want from a growth stock. I mentioned a few weeks ago that a lot of these, if you're looking for big multiples on your investment, a lot of these huge tech companies don't innovate as much as they did at first because they don't have to, because they are household names now. But Apple is still doing that, which I think is huge. And so still a big Apple bull, still holding plenty of Apple shares. If we do get a huge correction, I will add to that position. But overall, I think it was a solid day for them. But don't expect the stock to absolutely rip up in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, when does Apple really put out a bad product? Right, it's very rare. I'm using a MacBook Pro right now as we're doing this show. So
Same.
I'm so bullish on Apple. Obviously, I think that they're going to be around forever. Let's be honest. But the fact that we're at an all-time high, we put it in a bear market going into a keynote, and then, like you said, it's just started to be sold as soon as the meeting began, the exhibition. Pretty much buy the rumor, sell the news, right? We saw that the price was pumping over the past few weeks. Pretty much tech has been destroying the market. They've been dominating it. So Apple being part of that, it's no surprise there. But, we're talking about trillions of dollars, right? We're talking about $1 trillion market cap, right? A little bit over that now. It's absolutely insane. And maybe this is a point where it's just like, okay, all-time high going into this. I think a lot of people that were selling probably knew that this is going to be, maybe this is a top. This is a local top for, if we're looking at the big picture. But again, when I say local top, we're at an all-time high. So it's hard for me to say that's a local top. That's the top, clearly. But I think that a lot of people are definitely going to be taking some profit because, again, we do know that the greater macro financial outlook is pretty bad, right? It's pretty bleak. There's not a whole lot to be excited for, especially with consumers. I don't think consumers are going to have the money to be dropping, you know, 8K on these new MacBook Pros or whatever they're called, let alone $8 on a Big Mac. I think that it's going to be an extremely pivotal time for Apple. We're going to start seeing some of this price being taken away from it, because people are selling off. People need to make sure they have liquidity, and it's probably going to get a good retracement. I don't think it's going to go down it's probably going to go down substantially, but it's going to have to build up for a while to get back to where it is. The only problem is, we saw how fast it ran up this year. If we're going into a bear market where consumers just aren't buying, because clearly they were buying into the beginning of this year, it might take a while for that price to climb back up to that level. It could take, 2-3 years easily. It really depends on whenever this bull market begins and the bear market ends, right? So we need to see a reason for consumers to keep buying. I don't see a reason for consumers to be able to afford some of these products, at least not in the next 12 months. So I think that a lot of this is speculation, looking further ahead for some of these products. But I think that the stock is definitely going to be taking a pretty good hit. This could potentially be the top for Apple.
Yeah, I think it could be a local top for sure. If you look at, year to date, it started off the year at about 124 a share. So it's seen a 49% run up this year. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, long-term outlook is great. And I think if you're trying to look at this from a investing standpoint, it's, to me, how I want the price to go down, because I want more shares of Apple and I
Oh,
want
for
those
sure.
shares as cheaply as possible, right? Like, I don't know if it'll come down to where it was earlier at the beginning of the year. Like, I'm not a chart guy. I can't predict that. Lord, no one can predict that. I can have my price targets where I want to start buying some shares. And for me, I think that we could see back into the, very easily into the 140s, 130s. And if it hits, I think 145 is probably a point where I'd feel comfortable starting to buy some shares. And if it went down to 135, I'd buy some more. And if it went down to 125, I'd buy some more. So this is not like a trend to be negative about Apple. It's just being realistic here.
Yeah.
That when you take everything else into effect, when you take the fact that US signed the debt ceiling, money is going to need to flow from risk on assets into those bonds. We're already seeing moves to defensive stocks. We can talk about that here in a little bit. There will be an opportunity to buy Apple for cheaper. And I very much want to buy Apple for cheaper. And that is my game plan, because like I said, it's a solid dividend stock and it's a solid growth stock. And that is one of the best things you can look like. Legitimately, that is one of the best things. And you can let those dividends just roll into more shares of Apple, if you will, and let that compound and let that grow and, continue to have that growth over time is, I think, just so crucial.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is going to lose $1 trillion market cap. But again, people who do make bad financial decisions still like Apple. So they're going to be here for the long run. And yeah, I honestly, if it gets to a point where it's cheap enough, I'm definitely going to be buying it, because I do see post recession, post all this bullshit, we're going to see some pretty good price action. Even though at least a retracement is the all time high. I mean, that's a nice little return there. So be really interesting to see. But yeah, bullish on Apple macro, not terms of shorter term, 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into Binance,
Let's
because
do it.
as Ace brought up, you have been for months now
Yeah.
like going against Binance and saying that something's not right here. I know you've been shorting BNB. You've been on the like, this is fishy, something's up. So let's talk about Binance. We had news coming out today. The SEC is suing Binance and CZ for offering securities, and it is and also like commingling of funds, all
Yeah.
sort of shady shit. Why don't you talk about this part? Because I know that you are just like champing at the bit for this.
For sure. Yeah. It's really, I woke up this morning and I saw that CZ was potentially stepping down as CEO. They were going to have a replacement for him. And I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting news. Let me see how BNB is reacting. Not down much. It was like 300, I believe. Then next thing I know, wake up, heading to work, and I look at price and I'm like, oh, it's at 290. What happened? And I see the SEC pretty much just drop like 13 counts against Binance and CZ. And I was looking through them, and again, this is very particular of the SEC. I think the SEC has been going after a lot of exchanges. Binance is one that, for a while they've been kind of targeting. They've been just keeping an eye out on, especially after FTX. After FTX, Binance has been like one of their main targets. But there was a lot of things that were going on at Binance for a while, and we were talking about the negative funding rates for a long time, right? People were shorting Binance, a month, 2 months ago, and the funding rates were absolutely insane. So people holding these short positions were paying, people were holding longs a ton of money to keep their positions open. And I brought up that potentially this could have been the U.S. government. I said it could have been Justin Sun. It could have been Binance themselves. That there was just, it had to be someone with a lot of money that knew that something was going to happen. And clearly they knew something was going to happen. And I was telling everyone that around when Binance was at $347. That's when I was starting to get into my shorts around 347. And then clearly, now it's at what, 275. I think that's where it hit 273 today. Someone knew something. They made a ton of money off of it. I'm not surprised. And again, I think that the biggest thing for Binance that's really going to be interesting to see, because obviously now that there's a lawsuit against them, the SEC has the right to investigate. And well, the biggest thing that's probably going to give them a lot of trouble is the commingling of user funds, both from the US and international. Binance.us and Binance International, the one that's in every country, pretty much was just taking all these user funds to keep their their accounts solvent. That's really shady. It's really not the way you're supposed to do anything. The fact that Binance hasn't been audited too, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. So I think that we have, this, we're not going to get anything immediately. You were talking about how
Look at that. Look at that cliff.
Yeah, that's on the 5 minute.
That's a big old red line down. Yeah, that's on the very short time frame that I know you hate, but
No,
that's
that's
what it's on at the moment.
it's amazing. I love that chart. That's making me very happy today. And again, here's the thing: do I hate Binance and CZ? No, I don't like them. I don't hate them. I put out a tweet about this. So they're playing the game just like we are. We know that market makers exist. It's the same thing with regulators, right? I mean, the U.S., senators, governors, anyone in the U.S. could have been shorting Binance, knowing that this SEC ruling was going to come, right? They're going to drop this suit.
God, wait till we find out that Pelosi was shorting Binance.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. There was so the funding rates were absolutely insane. It was like 10 times what the normal amount would have been. And this is when Binance was at the all-time, not all-time high, but it was at a local top. It was $347 a share. And that means that they've ridden this all the way down. They probably used 10x leverage too. I couldn't imagine. No. But yeah, it's really insane to see how much, money was made off this move. And the thing is, do I hate Binance? No. I think that they're playing their game just like I said, everyone else is. But I think that you can still be good for the space, but make a big mistake. And I think that, liquidity might have been a really big issue. And that's why they commingled user funds and they artificially pumped Bitcoin up. I don't care what anyone says. That's my opinion. But I truly believe that with BUSD, they were using that to artificially push up the price of Bitcoin to the point where we're seeing these market maker patterns. And we'll get into it when we look at the Bitcoin chart today. But there's just absolute huge gaps that were just, institutions just buying all this Bitcoin at one time, and it was driving the price up, and people were FOMOing in and buying into this and going long. And that's when we got to 31,000. And once we got to 31,000, we got rejected. There's, all the sell orders started coming in. So they made enough money. They definitely were profitable in it. We were just looking at how Binance laid off, I think, 20,000 people, 20,000 employees from their company. And they were the ones that were talking about how they're, we were hiring while everyone else is laying people off this recession because we're smart and we're solvent. We'll see. We'll see. Again, who do I side with on this? No one. I'm literally a trader. I saw something bad was coming and I took advantage of it. And I think that's the way you got to be in this market because they're doing the same thing with us, right? They know exactly where our short positions are, where our longs are. I don't think that Binance is, Scott is going to go scot-free from this. I think there is going to be some regulation coming. Maybe Binance.us has to go down. We've seen Binance Canada go down. I think it was, what was the other one? Was it Binance Japan or something? There was another country where they were just like, yeah, we're not putting up with the regulatory problems. So clearly they just don't want to have regulations. The SEC is mad at them for making money, possibly, selling securities in their country. There's a bunch of stuff that they'll go after, but it'll be interesting to see. Not bullish on Binance, still short, haven't taken profit. It's been a pretty good Monday morning. We'll say that though.
Okay. Another piece of news on the crypto front. So just real briefly, one of the Ethereum co-founders moved 22,000 ETH to Kraken.
Wonderful.
probably to sell and get that money off of there. So that's something to keep an eye on the ETH front. I don't think you should be panic selling or anything, but it could lead. Maybe this is contributing to that big dump today. I think a big part of that was the SEC. We've seen fairly consistently, and this is, I think, an interesting thing to keep in mind too, is whenever we get this news around the SEC, which it seems like it happens like every couple of months.
Oh yeah.
Price always takes a dump. People overreact, and then inevitably bounces up. That being said, I think you also have to use that, in your decision making process, but also context of like bigger things going on as well. Because like who's selling that, and then who's buying it back up. And when we look at the larger macro conditions, is there really money out there to buy some of these dips back up right now for most, whether it's institutions or retail investors? So I think it's something to keep in mind. Like whenever we get this news, be prepared for a dump, but maybe it'll retrace, maybe it won't. Don't get overly emotional and like keep your head on straight there. So just something to keep in mind. Anything else, any charts you want to look at, what's coming to your mind here? I think it's an interesting day to look at more on the crypto side. We can look at Apple if we want, because now Apple is actually down 1% on the day. They've taken a pretty big red candle there. They're under 180 now. They're down, $3 off of where they opened the day. So we could look at Apple. We can look at Bitcoin. I know Randy just brought up the head and shoulder pattern, so we could take a look at that for him. You tell me.
Yeah, we'll just go through a bunch of them. We got some time. This is Apple. Obviously, we were checking this parallel channel that it was trading in. Broke out of it, obviously. But here's the thing. We're extremely overbought. If I pull down, the stochastic RSI indicator, it's at 100 and 100. That's the most overbought it could possibly be on the weekly. Breakdown is imminent, right? That's what we would anticipate. However, trading this channel is not, most of the time, this is a pretty bullish setup. However, this could be this move to the upside, this macro move, this could potentially be the end of that move. I think we have to be realistic here. And when we look at TradFi, how it's different than crypto, if a pattern like this is building up for a period of time, we have to think about how much money is pulled in. Like this is $1 trillion market cap. It's kind of hard for it to go up a little bit more from this, right? It's really hard to get to that point. But, it hit the all-time high. It looks like we got rejected right around a little bit above. So this could potentially be a double top too. You know what I mean? Like this could be 182. And we went up to 180. What was the height of this? 184. Even though it's not perfect, it still could be argued that is a double top scenario. We're extremely overbought on the stochastic RSI. And on the weekly, we see that the volumes are dropping despite the price going up. Let me see if I can get the volumes up. Yeah, see how the volumes are from here down to here. They're decreasing while the price is shooting up. That's bearish divergence 9 out of 10 times. That's going to break to the downside. So that paired up with this double top scenario, and then the 50s right there, and so is the 200. I could see a scenario where Apple starts to lose the 50. It's going to have to test the 200. Where is that 200 at? That's about 128, 130. Would this happen instantly? No, this would have to play out over time. But I do see some of these moving averages being tested on the weekly. Take a look at the monthly real quick, just see where everything is. We're going to be pretty overbought too. And then again, this is absolutely insane. In a bear market, Apple hits an all-time high, getting rejected from now. But again, monthly volumes are coming down as the price is pushing up. Nothing that you really want to see if we're in a bull market. You always want to see high volume, and you want to see price pushing up because of high volume. If we're not seeing the high volume, we're not in a bull market. I don't care what anyone says. That's one of my easiest indicators to know if a move is right or not. What's pushing this price up? And the same thing with Binance too. When I was looking at Binance and the price is going up, low volume, that just tells me that it's being manipulated. Maybe not manipulated in TradFi. Maybe it is. Who knows? We don't know what's going on down at unless we have the Bloomberg terminal. But this right here to me, it's not going to be something that I think is going to be pushing up, despite this being a parallel channel. I think this is more of a breakdown from here. I think this is a double top.
Okay, let's move on to Bitcoin so we can answer Randy's question around a head and shoulders pattern on the daily.
Absolutely. So I think we were talking about it a while ago, right? This is a monthly. Let's go to the daily. You can kind of see it really easily here, right? I remember I was telling you.
No,
I had
you see it easily because you got 75 different colors and lines on there.
All right, let's. You know what, JWeb? I had more lines on here and I cleaned it up for you. But this is the way that I don't even know what I'm going to say, but this I was calling it. So let's pull up the head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder, right head. So it's going to come down. I think it's going to come down to here. Maybe right shoulder there. Then let's say it goes to new lows, right? I'm just being facetious here, but we can see that this left shoulder's here. This head was at 31, and then we think that we're forming a right shoulder here. We have to come down to form the right shoulder. This is something that I was talking about when we saw it all the way on this side. And again, we saw market maker patterns to the upside. Price pushing up. Very low volume. Price pushing up, low volume, pushing up. Same thing. And we got to a point where we got resistance here, and this is like a sell area. People were just absolutely dropping the supply zone. And then we started coming down. We're waiting for a little bit similar move on this side. This has been playing out a little bit longer than it did on this side. We saw some consolidation here around that 27,000 level, but we're right now at 25,493, so we're under 25.5 right now. And we see that we came down, and it looks like the 200 EMA is going to offer some pretty good support. I tweeted out that 25,280 seemed like a pretty good level of support, so that kind of coincides right there with this this blue line and this yellow line. Looks like everything's coming to meet there. Do I think that we're going to see a little bit of a bounce? Sure. Obviously, nothing moves in straight lines one way or the other. There's always going to be a little bit of a bounce back, but I'm seeing this right now. I think that we are going to. There's a potential possibility that we go into this red zone. This is the one red zone I said if we hit an extremely bearish situation, something bad happens, we could be testing this red zone. That could be the bottom of our head, and we go into the right shoulder, and that's our little rally for maybe 1 or 2 months before we continue the pattern. And this was a continuation pattern. We talked about this last week, and we were saying that we were in a trend to the downside. Continuation patterns continue the pattern. So I'm not surprised that we are also going down today on this red line, right? So is this head and shoulders playing out? I think it is. I'm seeing the structure more and more. If I can go into this and do Elliott wave theory, and we can mark it up, and we could get super accurate down to the 1 minute timeline. I'm not going to do that. This chart's already crazy enough. I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing from this pattern. It's the head and shoulders. There's your levels. 28. What is this right here? Around 28. No, it's 22, 684. 25K. So if it goes below 25K and it gets into this range, I wouldn't be surprised. The only thing it's this right here, maybe 23.9, 24. That's possible. There's a little bit of support here. We could bounce off that, and then we get a small retracement. I don't think this right shoulder is going to push up higher than, if it does go down this low, 25.5 around there. Usually it's about pretty even with the left shoulder, maybe a little bit higher. But I do think that we are in a head and shoulders pattern for Bitcoin on the daily. We definitely are one on the weekly. Like, I can just zoom in real quick. It's pretty evident, right? Left shoulder, head coming down, right shoulder's coming. So, and again, once again, low volume. Look at that. Low volume.
Ooh, that volume is shit.
Yeah, it's worse than shit. I don't know what's worse than shit.
Worse than shit.
Worse than shit. This is the worst, clearly. But yeah, low volume. It's worse than shit, and this is probably going to come down again. We're not in a bull market. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm not sorry, but this low volume doesn't tell me that people are fucking buying. The price could be going up, but for me, this is 100% bearish divergence, and we're starting to see the breakdown of it. There's still some room for a potential rally, though, or like a retracement, so a correction where it does go up a little bit. But I want to see where we bottom first before we start talking about these estimates. But I do think there is a little bit more room to the downside. Could get a little bit of a bounce here and there, maybe 27K, highest maybe 28K. But for the most part, I think that we are still got a little bit more room to that red zone. I want to see that red zone get hit. Maybe we form that right shoulder next month or so. And again, this is lining up almost with 2008. I was just telling you, June was the sell-off for 2008. And I know Bitcoin wasn't around in 2008, but when we look at, the Dow, NASDAQ, and all those from 2008, S&P, May was the rally, June was the sell-off, and then it rallied for 2 months, barely, like just went sideways. And then we just saw, red candles till St. Patrick's Day the next year. So when I'm looking at
Kevin,
this,
I thought 40K was a magnet.
I told you, you're going to need a strong fucking magnet if you wanted Bitcoin to go up that high, man. It was a lot easier. And the best part is when we were at, where was it? We were at like 28K, 29K or something like that after we got retraced from 31. When that tweet came out, it's a lot easier for it to go to 25K than it is to 40K. It's easier for people to sell and more people to buy in when they don't have money, right? So absolutely BS. This is where we're going. Bitcoin is, I'm not saying it's in the shitter. It's going to have to play out in time. But am I looking for lower lows? Yes, I am. Okay, I still believe that we got to go a lot lower, and then when the selling does happen, it's going to be nonstop. It really is. It's going to be absolutely disgusting. It's going to be bloody. And if you're patient and you're, obviously believing in your convictions, you're going to be well rewarded. But at the same time, just understand that this is gonna feel like there's no bottom forever. That's my opinion. That's when I look at this.
This is like we've been talking about it for a while. The setup for people to finally capitulate, and people have been lulled into this false sense of security, and they're going to start to see it come down, and that's when the panic will set in, and that's
We
when it's finally going to happen. It
we
has
said
to
it, man.
happen.
Complacence,
It's being
complacent
dragged.
market.
It's being dragged out forever.
It
And
is.
the longer it is, the more pain there is going to be when it finally goes down, because people have this buildup that, like, okay, we're back into a bull market. They keep hearing that, like, TradFi is closer to a bull market. They keep hearing that, oh, the Fed's done raising rates. We're gonna pivot, blah blah blah. And so these expectations and the money signs are starting to kind of pop into their head again, so that when it does finally dump, and the dump is big, it is going to just absolutely wreck some people. And I hope that the people watching the show are not those ones, because I really, I don't, I, it's really hard to be like level headed at sometimes, but that's like the psychological, and this is what I want to talk about more of in later shows, like the psychological state of being involved in the markets, because that's so damn important.
Yeah.
But having a level head and being prepared for, I'd rather people be prepared for a huge dump and be able to take advantage of it than just like pump our viewership numbers by trying to be moon boys.
Yeah.
So that's what Kevin and I cannot promise you a whole lot, but we can promise you that we will try to keep a level head and not sell out for the sake of adding viewers. So that's my plan, is just let it bleed, and when everyone is shitting their pants and the Bitcoin fear and greed index is down at a 7 because everyone's so terrified, then we start buying.
Definitely. Yeah, complacent market is a dangerous market, right? We've been saying it for weeks, and we're going to see it play out for months, unfortunately. Randy, I'm not really sure. I just saw your comments. I'm personally not going to be selling until I see, if this plays out. I feel a little bit more risky. So again, I can't tell you what to do, but I do think that we are going to maybe, if this plays out in a bad way, maybe we do lose a little bit more Bitcoin support. We go into that red zone, but I'm not sure. Again, I can't tell you what's going to exactly happen all the time. Clearly, this market is manipulated in ways where the TA could be, right in the short term, but then out of nowhere something changes and the patterns change. So, can never guarantee anything like that, but this is absolutely what I'm seeing on the macro. This is the play. I do believe that Bitcoin is going to go into lower lows, though. I want to bring up XRP real quick because a lot of people are also following into XRP. I saw this morning and I tweeted it out about 3 hours before the price dropped down to, let's see, the low was 48 cents. So it was around 54 cents when I tweeted this, but it was, we're getting three things that are really bad here. We're getting, triple top, right around that 55 level. 1, 2, we're going to get close to it. But obviously Binance, that shit probably brought that down a little bit. We're in a parallel channel on the weekly. We're getting pretty overbought. And again, here's the death cross, right? Death cross came in here. We got a little bit of a fake out. People are saying, oh no, even though the death cross happened, we're still pushing up. Looks like the 50 is going to come by the 200 EMA. I think we're going to get rejected. This might be an absolute fake out for this. And that's three things that are really bad, in my opinion, and with low volume. And then again, the worst part of it all, FOMO. People think that the SEC case is going to be resolved with XRP. I don't believe that this is going to be, one that's going to be going to the moon. People are really betting on something that's going to go straight up. I don't think it's going to be XRP today. Again, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's not financial advice, but we are in a bear market and we see how long the SEC drags shit out and these cases play out. So people betting on this, I think, again, we have a few days before we get some more news on the case. This is a buy the rumor, sell the news event, and I think people are taking advantage of it already going into this Binance news that came out. Absolute BS in my opinion. I like XRP, but I'm not buying it here. Two more things I just want to look at real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. I want to look at Tron because this is an absolute Ponzi, very similar to Binance. This is another one of my shorts. On Friday, this thing shot up like crazy, and this was based on the fact that Tron did something with the Ethereum network, or they're on their blockchain or something stupid that no one uses Tron, right? Price shot up, went above this parallel channel. The volumes are so low on Tron. This is just in Sun, just like trading from wall to wall. Literally, no one uses Tron. The fact that it's 50% of where it was at the all-time high right now in a bear market, it's extremely overbought, and while everything else is pretty much dropping. Like this one's still somewhat strong is a joke to me, but yeah, we came above it 2 days later, closed right into the parallel channel. Today we're getting rejected on the weekly. It's overbought on the weekly. Let's go to the daily. Daily's coming down, but you can see that this candle right here on Friday that shot up, it's part of a three-way move to the upside, but now it's got to come down. I think it's the five-way move that we're going to start seeing. But this right here, I mean, if we look even on the, I think it was like let me see if I can get the hourly. Yeah, there it is. On Friday in the afternoon, just shot straight up, right? That's an absolute Ponzi. That gap had to be filled. And guess what? We filled that fucking gap. It happens, right? So this is what we need to keep an eye on. There's patterns like this in the market that are going to definitely give you red flags. Alarms are shooting off. This was one of them. It was a little bit scary because it's getting closer to a liquidation price. You got to be careful with that. But at the same time, it's like if you see something like that happen and it's completely overbought on the stochastic RSI, the volumes are pretty low, and you see this massive volume push up. And it's also if it's Tron specifically, there's something fishy about it. Again, this was just ringing bells like Binance was for me. I shorted a little bit more, and then I'm glad I did because clearly it came down and filled that gap. It's a very manipulated market. You have to be careful. I can't tell you what to do, but again, this is something to keep an eye out for. And yeah, Bitcoin dominance, last one. See how it's dropping? Yeah, Bitcoin dominance is absolutely taking a leg down. But what is taking a leg up? USDT. Remember we're talking about USDT dominance? So we can see as the CZ stuff happened, they started shooting up, Bitcoin dominance started coming down. This gives me confidence that people are really not sure what to do with their money.
Real quick, as a reminder, this is not the price of USDT going up. This is Kevin's looking at the market cap of
Correct.
USDT. I wanted to bring that up real quick.
Definitely. Yeah. It's just to me, this shows that people are moving, crypto into USDT. That's why Bitcoin's dominance is being lost. It's not being lost completely because it still has, way more strength over most alts. But USDT has been on an absolute run. We can see that if you look at the weekly. That's a pretty good weekly candle there, in my opinion. And we were talking about this, like, where's this money going if Bitcoin dominance is coming down, but the price is not shooting up? People are swapping into stables because they're not sure what's going to happen, right? Everyone's really afraid. So that's where the money's going. Again, we follow the money. The money never sleeps. It's the game we're playing. Don't get caught up in the emotions. No false idols, any of that stuff. The macro is never gonna lie to you. The 1 hour chart and all that stuff definitely is gonna manipulate it. But yeah, that's all I got today. Tons of fun stuff in the charts. Tons of fun stuff this week. I'm so excited because there's definitely gonna be a lot more coming out with this Binance CZ SEC stuff. So that's all I got in the charts today. Hope everyone enjoyed
we've seen
that.
Chop for so long. It's nice to see
it's
some
fun.
action again.
No more crap.
We're watching as we speak. We are watching ETH fight for this 1800 level. It dipped below for a second. It's right around 1805. I think we're going to continue to see that fight happen. But I just want to see. I'm still just patiently waiting in cash, sitting here. I have my long positions, but I'm ready when the time comes. I'm not trying to rush anything here, but I'm ready to deploy some capital when the time is right. And I think that is approaching, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So that's going to wrap it for today. Kevin and I will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. If you have not yet, you know the drill. There's some buttons down below. The like, the subscribe, the comment, and the big boy is the share button. The more people we can get in front of with our takes, the better. Like I said, we're not going to change to meet the demands of trying to get more viewers, but we want to try to get as much organic engagement as possible. So appreciate everybody for watching. Ace, Randy, you guys are awesome. Love the conversations you guys are having over there. Keep it up. Anything you want us to talk about, we're always here for you guys. Appreciate it so much. Have an awesome day, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.